Hello and welcome to Ian's Music Room and episode 2 of my 4-track adventure. It's been a few weeks since the unboxing, and that's because when I got the machine out and tried it, there were a few faults which I had to fix. Some of the buttons weren't engaging, the pots were crackly with volume jumps, but worst of all, track 1 wasn't recording on. So I reached out for some help and got some great answers, and I managed to fix all the problems. So we are ready to go. When contemplating how I might use the 4-track, I thought it would be interesting to somewhat recreate the kind of setup I had back in the late 80s and all through the 90s. And I'm not going to be pedantic about it, but just to try and somewhat emulate that kind of setup. So I had a bass guitar, and I have a bass guitar. Had double bass, have double bass. Dynamic microphone, were great. I had a Casio keyboard, a cheap little synth, and to replace that I have my Waldorf Blofeld, which is over there. And I also had a bunch of percussion instruments which I'd collected from around the world. Unfortunately, I don't have these anymore, so I really want to kind of get some more percussion and build up my collection of games. That's really fun to use percussion. I also had a drum machine, and I don't have a drum machine anymore, but in the meantime I can use just my iPad just to get some beats in there if I want to have that. And finally, I had access to my cousin's Moog Source synth, which is absolutely fantastic. And I don't have that anymore, but I have my Moog Sub 25 instead. Okay. I shall be playing in all the instruments one by one. So record on track 1, and then rewind, record on track 2, rewind, record on track 3. So I can do that with all 4 tracks, or I could record on 3 tracks, bounce down to 1, and then start again. And then once I've got all my tracks recorded, I can then record a stereo mix. I'm going to do it into the computer just to make it easier to then share that final stereo mix. Great. So that's all the technical and gear stuff sorted out. Then I had a realization. The way I've been producing, composing and recording music for the last 20 years or more has been very much geared around the computer and the DAW, the DAW. And that approach doesn't really work with the 4-track. So on the 4-track there is no quantize, there's no MIDI, there's no audio stretching, there's no auto-tuning. There's no editing or moving parts around, no plugins. Everything on the 4-track has to be played in live or pre-sequenced with a drum machine. And any mistakes have to be redone again. Although there is a punch in and punch out on this, which is great. I'm looking forward to trying that out. Okay. So I have to also decide the arrangement beforehand, or else go for completely free-form improvisation, which I absolutely love doing that as well. And I've used to do that on the 4-track, so that's going to be really fun. So the interesting thing about all that is I'm not much of a keyboard player or percussionist, actually. So when I do those parts, I'm going to really have to kind of like practice and rehearse and get the actual performance that I record up to that level that I want, rather than doing what I do now, which is edit in the DAW. So this is going to be a really interesting and fun learning experience, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you my first creation. So thank you for listening. Please do like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I shall play out with some ideas I'm getting around for my first production. So there's some pre-recorded drum beats. I'm going to play around with a melody idea that I've got on the synth.